It was a quiet Friday night in Meridian, Idaho. It was the kind of night where families gathered in their living rooms, winding down from a long week. It was the kind of night where the parking lot of a Walgreens, a place meant for last-minute prescriptions and late-night convenience, was nothing more than a stop on the way home. But this night, under the harsh glow of streetlights and the hum of passing cars, something else was unfolding. A black pickup truck pulled into the lot, its tires crunching against the pavement. Inside sat a man whose heart pounded harder with every breath. He wasn't here for medicine. He wasn't here for groceries. He was here for answers. And as he watched a familiar silver car park just a few spots away, his hands tightened on the steering wheel. His worst suspicions were about to be confirmed. A woman stepped out of the car first, his wife. The woman he had built a life with. The mother of his children. But she wasn't alone. Another man followed. Younger. Confident. Unaware that within seconds, his fate would be sealed. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. A heavy, suffocating stillness that came before the storm. And then, in an instant, the night erupted. Words flew like weapons, cutting deeper than any blade. Accusations, betrayal, rage, and then a gunshot. The blast echoed through the empty lot, bouncing off the walls of the Walgreens and into the darkened streets beyond. A man staggered back, clutching his chest. His legs buckled beneath him, and as he collapsed onto the pavement, his life slipping away with each desperate breath, another man stood over him, his hands trembling, his world unraveling. One moment of passion, one moment of fury, one irreversible decision. The damage was done when the flashing red and blue lights filled the night sky. A husband, a wife, a lover, and a story that would send shockwaves through an entire community. Was this an act of self-defense? A crime fueled by jealousy? Or was the truth far more complicated? Tonight, we take you back to March 11th, 2011, to the Walgreens parking lot, where love, betrayal, and rage collided in the most tragic way imaginable. What would you do if you found the person you trusted most wrapped in the arms of another? Would you walk away? Or would you let your emotions take control? And if you did, could you ever live with the consequences? The story of that fateful night in a Walgreens parking lot did not begin there. It had been building for months, hidden behind text messages, stolen moments, and whispered phone calls. For lives were intertwined, each carrying secrets, desires, and unspoken fears that would ultimately collide in the most tragic way possible. At the center of it was Candy Hall. To the outside world, she was a devoted wife and mother, a woman who had spent years supporting her husband, Rob, while raising their children. She worked as a paralegal, a role that kept her close to the legal world, but far enough away to avoid its darker corners. But beneath the surface, Candy was restless. She had been married for years, and the predictability of her life had begun to feel suffocating. Then there was Emmett Corrigan. Young, confident, and full of ambition, he was the kind of man who turned heads when he walked into a room. A rising attorney, he carried himself with a charm that made him difficult to ignore. He was also married, a father of 5 with a life that seemed picture-perfect on the surface. But Emmett wasn't satisfied with just being a family man. He craved excitement, risk, something that would make him feel invincible. On the other side of the equation stood Rob Hall, Candy's husband. A man who had built his life around his family, doing everything he could to be a provider and protector. Rob was solid and dependable, believing in loyalty, vows, and forever. But cracks were forming in his marriage, ones he could sense even if he couldn't see them. And when he did start to see them, it was already too late. And finally, there was Ashley Corrigan, Emmett's wife. She was a devoted mother, a woman who had given her heart to a man she believed she knew. She had spent years standing by his side, raising their children, trusting in the life they had built together. But trust can only go so far, and suspicion has a way of creeping in, no matter how much someone tries to push it aside. These 4 people, bound by love, betrayal, and choices they couldn't take back, were moving toward an inevitable breaking point. And when it finally came, it would end in violence. Candy and Rob Hall had what many would call a classic love story. They were high school sweethearts, the kind of couple people assumed would make it through anything. They built a life together, raised a family, and settled into the routine that comes with years of marriage. But routine can be dangerous. It can make people feel unseen, unnoticed, and unappreciated. Rob worked hard, provided, and did everything he thought a husband was supposed to do. But love is not just about provision. It's about connection, attention, and the small moments that remind someone they are wanted. And somewhere along the way, Candy started to feel like something was missing. Enter Emmett Corrigan. He was everything Rob was not: younger, confident, bold. He didn't just go through the motions. He knew how to make a woman feel wanted. When he and Candy met, the pull was instant. At first, he was just her boss, and their relationship was purely professional. But professionalism turned personal, and personal became something neither of them was willing to walk away from. Emmett was no stranger to risk. He lived for it. In his career and his personal life, he thrived on pushing limits. He had a family, a wife who loved him, and children who looked up to him, but he wanted more. And Candy was willing to give him that. Late-night phone calls, secret meetings, a passion that made them forget the consequences. Meanwhile, Ashley Corrigan was watching. She may not have had proof, but she felt it. The distance, the late nights at work. Emmett's attention seemed to drift even when he was beside her. She told herself she was imagining things, that it was just stress, that their marriage was strong enough to survive anything. But in the back of her mind, a quiet fear was growing. And then there was Rob. The man who had built his life around his family, trusted his wife, and believed in their exchanged vows. But trust only lasts as long as the truth remains intact. And when the first cracks appeared, he began to see what he had been blind to for far too long. Rob Hall was not a man who liked to assume the worst. But there were signs. Small at first. A distance in Candy's eyes when she spoke to him. Excuses that didn't quite add up. A phone call that ended too quickly when he entered the room. Then came the receipts. Charges that didn't make sense. Late-night errands that stretched longer than they should. Conversations that felt forced, as if Candy was saying what she thought she should rather than what she wanted to say. And Candy? She was caught between two worlds. She had a husband, a family, and a life she had built. But she also had Emmett. The thrill, the passion, the excitement. Was it love? Or was it just an escape? Did she want to leave her marriage? Or was she searching for something that made her feel alive again? Emmett, on the other hand, wasn't searching. He was taking. He had a wife at home, but he wanted Candy. And when he wanted something, he didn't hesitate. It was a dangerous game, but one he thought he could control. Ashley wasn't blind. She could feel the distance, sense the shift. The way Emmett looked at his phone, the way he avoided certain questions. She didn't want to believe it, but deep down, she knew. A wife always knows. And then, there was the moment when everything changed. The moment Rob found something, he couldn't ignore it. The moment when suspicion became a certainty. And once that line was crossed, there was no turning back. March 11th, 2011. The night he followed his wife. The night everything he had feared became real. And the night a Walgreens parking lot would become a crime scene. As the crisp March air settled over Meridian, Idaho, in 2011, the lives of 4 individuals were on a collision course with tragedy. Emmett Corrigan, a charismatic attorney and father of 5, had embarked on a perilous affair with his paralegal, Candy Hall. Once shrouded in secrecy, their relationship had grown increasingly audacious, with public rendezvous that defied the norms of discretion. This brazen conduct jeopardized their reputations and set a chain of events leading to irreversible consequences. Rob Hall, Candy's husband, was under siege by his emotions. Friends and family observed a transformation in him. A once composed individual now exhibiting signs of agitation and impatience. The whispers of infidelity had become deafening, eroding his trust and fueling a growing resentment. Each unexplained absence of his wife, each furtive glance at her phone, added layers to his mounting suspicion, pushing him closer to a breaking point. On the evening of March 11, 2011, Candy informed Rob of a brief errand she needed to run. Her demeanor was casual, betraying no hint of the underlying tension. However, Rob's intuition had been honed by weeks of doubt and unease. As she departed, he made a fateful decision to follow, driven by a need for truth and perhaps a desire for confrontation. Grabbing his handgun, a symbol of his escalating turmoil, he trailed her into the night, each mile intensifying his internal conflict. Candy's destination was a Walgreens parking lot in Meridian, a seemingly mundane location that would soon become the backdrop for a life-altering encounter. There, she met Emmett, continuing their illicit liaison with a sense of invincibility that often accompanies forbidden love. Their conversation, likely filled with whispered promises and shared secrets, unfolded under the dim glow of parking lot lights, oblivious to the approaching storm. Rob arrived at the scene, his heart pounding with dread and determination. Seeing his wife's car alongside Emmett's vehicle confirmed his worst fears, igniting a volatile cocktail of emotions. With his handgun concealed, he approached the pair, each step heavy with the weight of betrayal and the anticipation of confrontation. The ensuing moments were a chaotic blur of anger, accusations, and escalating tension. Words were exchanged sharp, cutting, irretrievable, escalating into a physical altercation between the two men. In the heat of the struggle, gunshots shattered the night, leaving Emmett Corrigan dead and Rob Hall wounded. Once a place of routine errands, the Walgreens parking lot had transformed into a crime scene, marking the devastating climax of a tale wrought with passion, deceit, and irrevocable choices. This tragic episode serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of unchecked emotions and the perilous paths carved by betrayal. The lives entwined in this narrative were forever altered, leaving a legacy of pain and reflection for those left in its wake. On March 11, 2011, in the dimly lit expanse of the Walgreens parking lot in Meridian, Idaho, an unsettling stillness pervaded the air. The fluorescent glow from the store's signage cast long, distorted shadows across the asphalt, creating an atmosphere thick with anticipation. Within this setting, three lives converged, leading to a confrontation that irreversibly altered their destinies. Rob Hall, having followed his wife, Candy Hall, arrived at the parking lot to find her in the company of Emmett Corrigan, her employer and lover. The sight of them together, engaged in intimate conversation, confirmed Rob's deepest suspicions and ignited a torrent of emotions. The boundaries between betrayal and rage blurred as he approached the pair, his presence transforming the quiet night into a charged battleground. The initial exchange was a volatile mix of accusations and denials, voices escalating in volume and intensity. Rob's anguish found its outlet in confrontational words, while Emmett attempted to assert control over the escalating situation. Caught between her husband and lover, Candy becomes a silent witness to the unraveling of her clandestine actions. The tension reached a critical juncture when, amidst the heated dialogue, a firearm was brandished, its presence escalating the encounter to a perilous precipice. The ensuing moments unfolded with harrowing swiftness. A struggle ensued, marked by desperate attempts to gain control over the weapon. In the chaos, gunshots pierced the night air. Emmett Corrigan staggered, the force of the bullets propelling him backward until he collapsed onto the cold pavement. Candy's scream echoed through the parking lot, a visceral manifestation of the horror that had transpired. The abrupt cessation of sound that followed was deafening, encapsulating the moment's gravity. In the aftermath, the parking lot stood as a silent testament to the tragic culmination of concealed desires and festering grievances. The stark reality of Emmett's lifeless form juxtaposed against the mundane backdrop of the retail establishment underscored the profound consequences of the night's events. The lives entwined in this narrative were irrevocably altered, each individual bearing the indelible marks of the choices made and actions taken within those fateful minutes. In the immediate aftermath of the tragic shooting in the Walgreens parking lot, a frantic 911 call pierced the night. Candy Hall's voice, laden with panic, conveyed the situation's urgency. At the same time, in the background, the labored breathing of her husband, Rob Hall, hinted at the physical and emotional toll of the confrontation. First responders arrived swiftly to a chaotic scene. Emmett Corrigan lay lifeless, a victim of gunshot wounds, and Rob Hall, injured but conscious, bore a gunshot wound to his head. The critical question loomed: was this a case of self-defense or premeditated murder? Law enforcement officials promptly detained Rob Hall, initiating a series of interrogations to unravel the events leading up to the shooting. During questioning, Rob claimed that Emmett had been the aggressor, asserting he acted in self-defense. However, investigators cautiously approached his account, seeking corroborative evidence to substantiate or refute his narrative. Simultaneously, Candy Hall's statements underwent scrutiny. Initially, she appeared to support her husband's version of events, perhaps influenced by shock or a desire to protect him. Yet, as the investigation progressed, inconsistencies emerged in her recounting of the incident, prompting detectives to question the reliability of her testimony. This evolving narrative added complexity to the case, suggesting that the truth was more intricate than it initially appeared. Forensic analysis played a pivotal role in piecing together the sequence of events. Examinations revealed gunpowder residue on Rob Hall's hands, indicating his involvement in the shooting. Ballistic experts analyzed the bullet trajectories, aiming to reconstruct the positions and actions of both men during the altercation. The location of shell casings and bullet impacts provided critical insights into the dynamics of the confrontation, challenging aspects of Rob's self-defense claim. As investigators delved deeper, they uncovered a trove of digital evidence that shed light on the relationships among the individuals involved. Emails and text messages between Candy Hall and Emmett Corrigan painted a vivid picture of their affair, revealing the depth of their involvement and the strain it placed on their respective marriages. This discovery not only established a motive but also cast doubt on the spontaneity of the encounter, suggesting that emotions had been simmering long before the fatal night. The investigation further revealed that Rob Hall had been aware of the affair before the shooting. He had discovered intimate communications between his wife and Emmett, fueling feelings of betrayal and anger. This awareness raised questions about his state of mind leading up to the confrontation and whether a desire for retribution influenced his actions. Throughout the investigative process, detectives faced the challenge of disentangling the intertwined lives and conflicting testimonies of those involved. Each revelation added layers to the narrative, requiring meticulous analysis to distinguish between fact and fabrication. The goal was to construct an objective account of the events, ensuring that justice would be served based on evidence rather than emotion. The investigation into the shooting at the Walgreens parking lot was a complex endeavor that required balancing forensic evidence, witness testimonies, and digital communications. The interplay of these elements highlighted the intricacies of human relationships and the tragic consequences that can arise from deception and betrayal. As the case progressed toward trial, the foundation laid by the investigators would prove crucial in the pursuit of justice for Emmett Corrigan and all parties affected by the tragedy. In the aftermath of the tragic events that unfolded on March 11, 2011, the Meridian community was left in shock. The confrontation in the Walgreens parking lot resulted in the death of Emmett Corrigan and injuries to Rob Hall. As the investigation progressed, the focus shifted towards determining the circumstances that led to the fatal shooting and establishing accountability. Following the incident, law enforcement officials arrested Rob Hall on charges of second-degree murder. Initially maintaining a composed demeanor, Hall's facade began to crumble under the weight of the allegations and the reality of the situation. The gravity of the charges and the potential consequences loomed large, marking the beginning of a legal battle that would scrutinize the events of that fateful night. The trial commenced with the prosecution presenting a narrative about jealousy and rage. They argued that Hall's actions were not in self-defense but rather a calculated response driven by the discovery of his wife's affair with Corrigan. The prosecution highlighted evidence suggesting that Hall had been aware of the affair and had confronted the couple on multiple occasions, painting a picture of a man pushed to the brink by betrayal. A pivotal moment in the trial was the testimony of Candy Hall. Torn between her loyalty to her husband and the guilt over her involvement with Corrigan, Candy faced immense pressure on the witness stand. Her testimony provided insight into the relationship's complexities and the events leading up to the shooting. Candy recounted the progression of her affair with Corrigan, acknowledging the strain it placed on her marriage. She detailed the confrontations between her husband and her lover, shedding light on the escalating tensions that culminated in the tragic incident. Her account was instrumental in giving the jury a comprehensive understanding of the emotional dynamics. After deliberations, the jury found Rob Hall guilty of second-degree murder. The conviction underscored the jury's assessment that Hall's actions were not justified as self-defense, but were instead a response to the emotional turmoil stemming from the affair. The verdict carried significant legal consequences, with Hall facing a substantial prison sentence. In the sentencing phase, the court considered various factors, including the impact of the crime on the victims' families and Hall's prior conduct. Rob Hall was sentenced to 30 years in prison, with eligibility for parole after serving 17.5 years. The sentence reflected the severity of the crime and aimed to serve both punitive and deterrent purposes. The aftermath of the trial left indelible scars on all parties involved. Emmett Corrigan's family grappled with the loss of a husband and father, while Candy Hall faced the repercussions of her actions on both personal and legal fronts. The case served as a somber reminder of the devastating consequences that can arise from personal betrayals and unchecked emotions. In conclusion, the confrontation and subsequent arrest of Rob Hall marked the climax of a tragic sequence of events fueled by infidelity, jealousy, and rage. The following legal proceedings sought to unravel the complexities of human relationships and deliver justice for the lives lost. The case remains a poignant example of how personal choices can lead to irreversible outcomes, affecting those directly involved and the broader community. In the quiet suburb of Meridian, Idaho, March 11, 2011, cast a long, unyielding shadow over two families. The tragic confrontation that night not only claimed a life but also irrevocably altered the futures of those left behind. Ashley Corrigan, once a devoted wife, was thrust into the role of a single mother to 5 young children. The sudden loss of her husband, Emmett, left a void that words could scarcely describe. Each day presented new challenges as she navigated the complexities of grief, while striving to provide stability for her children. The echoes of their father's absence were felt in every corner of their home, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the unforeseen turns it can take. Ashley's resilience became the cornerstone of her family's healing journey as she endeavored to fill the roles of both mother and father, guiding her children through the storm of loss. Candy Hall's life unraveled in the aftermath of the shooting. The affair with Emmett Corrigan had been a dangerous liaison, and its exposure led to devastating consequences. Her husband's incarceration and the public scrutiny that followed left her isolated and burdened with guilt. The weight of her choices bore heavily upon her, leading to further legal troubles, including charges of grand theft unrelated to the incident. Candy's world, once defined by familial bonds and societal norms, crumbled, leaving her to confront the repercussions of her actions alone. Rob Hall, convicted of second-degree murder, faced a stark new reality behind prison walls. Sentenced to 30 years with the possibility of parole after 17.5 years, he was left to reflect on the split-second decisions that led to a lifetime of consequences. The confines of his cell served as a constant reminder of the night that altered the course of multiple lives. Separated from his children and the life he once knew, Rob grappled with remorse and the irreversible nature of his actions. His incarceration became a testament to how unchecked emotions and impulsive reactions can dismantle the very fabric of one's existence. The tragic outcome of this entangled affair raises a haunting question. Could this crime have been prevented? The signs of marital discord, the clandestine meetings, and the escalating tensions were all precursors to the fatal encounter. Had there been interventions, open dialogues, counseling, or even legal separations, perhaps the trajectory could have been altered. This reflection serves as a poignant reminder of the importance of addressing underlying issues before they manifest into irreversible actions. It underscores the need for communication, empathy, and support systems to navigate the complexities of human relationships and prevent such tragedies from recurring. In the end, the aftermath of that fateful night serves as a somber lesson on the consequences of infidelity, unchecked emotions, and the fragility of human connections. The lives intertwined in this narrative testify to the enduring impact of choices made in moments of passion and despair. It was a quiet suburban night, a parking lot under the glow of fluorescent lights, A confrontation that lasted mere moments but changed lives forever. The story of Rob Hall, Candy Hall, and Emmett Corrigan is one of passion, betrayal, and irreversible choices. In the end, one man lost his life, another lost his freedom, and two families were left shattered. Ashley Corrigan, a mother of 5, was forced to bury her husband and explain to her children why their father would never come home. Caught between desire and deception, Candy Hall watched her life unravel in a courtroom. And Rob Hall, once a father, a husband, a man with a future, now spends his days behind bars, reliving the night that sealed his fate. This case raises questions that linger far beyond the crime scene. What drives a person to kill? Was Rob Hall acting out of self-defense, as he claimed, or was this a crime fueled by rage and jealousy? And at what point does an affair, a betrayal, become far more dangerous? A single decision, a single gunshot, a single moment that could never be undone. What do you think? Was Rob Hall justified in his actions? Or was this a premeditated act of revenge? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear your thoughts. If you found this story gripping, hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life crime stories. Turn on notifications so you never miss a case that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Because in the world of true crime, the truth is never as simple as it seems.